You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Hey there, my fabulous Rich Life Revolutionaries. Welcome back to another episode where we dive deep into business, mindset, and money magic. Today, we're talking about leadership, but not the corporate stiff collar kind. We're breaking down real, practical leadership for solopreneurs and small business owners with my incredible guest, Markey Read. Markey is a business strategist, leadership expert, and all-round powerhouse with over 25 years of experience helping women entrepreneurs grow, thrive, and ditch the overwhelm. She's sharing her insights on how your leadership style impacts business growth, the big mindset shift from solopreneur to CEO, how to set boundaries like a boss with clients and your team, and the secret to confident decision-making and avoiding burnout. So whether you're rocking your business solo or starting to build your empire, this episode is packed with gems that will help you lead with confidence and clarity. So let's dive in. Hey, Markey, it's so good to have you here.
So lovely to see you again, Michelle. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my God. So for my listeners, Markey and I are both part of the Woman Network, and we actually got to spend some time together in person last year in Dallas, and it was just awesome. She's one of my favorite people in that community and really, really a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for joining us and taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk.
Awesome. Awesome. So before we dive into our great topic today, I'm going to ask you a little question. Just throw it on you, surprise you. Brag about yourself, Markey. Brag about yourself.
Okay. So let's see. So brag about myself. Well, I've been in business a long time. And as I've been saying lately, I just know stuff. I know a lot of stuff.
Right?
I've been in business for 35 years, and I have helped lots and lots of folks with their challenges around their professional development and their entrepreneurial development to really find that perfect, great fit for themselves. You know, that place where their personal style really meets what they're up to, whether it's in their business or in their profession. And what excites me about all of that, though, is when I get the stories later when people say, "Oh my gosh, I've been in my position, or I've been growing my business for a while now, and this is what I've discovered. All the things that we talked about are happening. It's happening. It's really happening." And it makes it all worthwhile. You know, it makes it all worthwhile. But I've also published a couple of books. I created a model on leadership styles, and I published that book about 10 years ago. And I just recently published another book this last year called Launch, Grow, and Prosper as a Woman Solopreneur. And
Nice.
so I know stuff.
I know stuff. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you do. Absolutely. You know, sometimes people say to me, "How do you know all this stuff?" And I go, I don't know. I just do. Like, it comes from experience, right? And it comes from lived experience or clients that I've worked with or something I read, or, you know, I'm one of those people who's committed to learning and growth. And so I feel like I know stuff too. And I don't necessarily know how I know it. It's just in there.
I think when you're curious, you know, you're naturally a curious person, which of course is perfect for a podcast, right? You're naturally a curious person and you're interested in people. I say to people, the best way to make good connections is find people interesting. Just find people interesting.
Right.
And you will learn the most amazing, amazing things because everybody has something that's really interesting about them.
Totally. Absolutely. 100% agree. So today we're going to talk about leadership for solopreneurs and small business owners, right? Those women entrepreneurs in our audience that are listening. But that's not just it, right? Like what I've come to know about leadership is it's kind of like the how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if, we might be talking about being a woman in business, but this applies to your everyday life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Self-leadership is as important as like the leadership that you embody leading a team or leading clients or leading a family or leading, maybe you volunteer or, leading something at your church or whatever, right? It's all the same. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not a business owner, this conversation is still for you. If you are, you're going to get some really good nuggets from Markey because she is amazing at this.
I think everybody is a leader somewhere. This is the thing. This is the thing is
Totally,
that
right?
why leadership intrigues me so much is everybody's a leader somewhere, and all those places you just listed, we show up. We show up as ourselves. We bring ourselves wherever we go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. As we should, right? We want to show up authentically as leaders as well.
Yeah.
So, as you said, you've been in business for a long time. You've worked with so many business owners, right? In your opinion, how do different leadership styles impact the growth and success of an entrepreneur or a solopreneur?
That's really a good question. Some people, um, the thing about entrepreneurship that's also fascinating is there's so many ways to do it, right? There's as many ways to do it as there are people out there.
Right.
And there are people that are more comfortable buying something that already exists, whether that's a franchise or an existing business, and then really growing and making it their own. There's other people that are going to completely make up everything on their own and they don't want to do anything like anybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
there's everything in between. And what I've discovered is that those really correlate directly to your personality type. Like if you know your personality type, the leadership model that I created is based in that. If you know your personality type, it gives you so many clues into not only the kind of business that you might be attracted to, but how you're going to do that. Some people will set up all of their structures very early on, even though they're always evolving. Other people won't set up a single structure until they're 10 years in, and they're sort of forced to do it. And wherever our strengths are is what we tend to do that the most, right? We rely on, if I'm a structured person, then I want to create all the structures I can right up front, even though they'll change because it gives me some comfort in the way that I operate every day. And other people who just really want to, flow and go into whatever attracts them, they have structure, they have systems, but they often don't recognize it until much later that they actually have them because they've been doing some things in repetition.
Right, right. And so I've heard like a buzzword, right, of like or what was it? Vulnerable leadership or compassionate leadership or authentic leadership. Like what does that mean?
Oh, this is such an interesting piece. So, first of all, those are great qualities, right? To be compassionate and vulnerable and all that. And what I discovered in the research I did around leadership is that whenever somebody says, the servant leader is the way to be, well, it's
Hmm,
a direct reflection of their leadership style. And
right.
so it worked really well for them. And they also found other people for whom it worked really well. And so they documented it and created a whole model around it. But not everybody is going to lead in that way. And it's okay. You can still be compassionate. You can still be kind. You can still be generous and all those lovely things. You can still be vulnerable, but it may not be the signature of your leadership style.
Mm,
And when you hear about the part of the challenge for things like compassionate leadership, for example, it's a response to the lack of compassion in the business world. And so
mm,
people think, well, we need more of that, and that is the solution, like that is the key, as opposed to we need to integrate more of it. And vulnerability, I think, is a really big piece for all of us. I don't care what your style is, we as you age, you learn that vulnerability is actually part of your strength, right? Instead of a weakness. And I think as a younger person myself, I had a hard time with expressing that as a place from a place of strength rather than um, a place that I thought was somehow if I showed vulnerability, it was a weakness.
Totally.
And now I understand that, we're human. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we regret, and we all do things that aren't perfect the first time out. And that vulnerability, that ability to laugh with yourself, have a sense of humor, that's part of vulnerability too. Because vulnerability isn't, I think that sometimes when people hear vulnerability, they think it's like all about, being highly emotive and crying and all that. Vulnerability is about, just having a good laugh at your own expense. And once in a while, sometimes I'm just really a bozo. And,
Right?
okay, get over yourself and just get on with it.
Yeah. Like you, I would say in my younger years, when I was working in corporate, you couldn't be vulnerable because that was a weakness, right? And you're going up against men and they see you cry and,
Right.
or laugh, you're not taking it seriously. Like there's all these things, right, that you kind of have to navigate. And for me in my business, that's been a struggle, right? Like
Mm.
I'll be really honest. The I think I'm very generous, and I do have a lot of compassion and empathy, um, and I think that comes through. It definitely comes through my core values of my company, but I have struggled in being that maybe that kind of vulnerable leader. Although the other day I was watching one of my like guilty pleasures is like those kind of real estate reality
Oh,
shows.
yeah. Yeah.
And I was watching a show on Netflix, and one of the top real estate agents who has a team and, selling like $1 billion in real estate in New York. She started a conversation with her team member, which started with, I want you to know this is a really uncomfortable conversation for me to have. And I was like, oh, so that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
need to call it out. If it's okay for my team to know if something's uncomfortable for me,
Yeah.
right? And it was like a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, you can do that? Like, okay, great. That sounds good.
Yeah.
I can do that. Like, I it doesn't go along with what I learned kind of thing from life in my career, but for sure I could see how that can instantly set the tone that
Yeah.
this is it's a different conversation,
Yeah.
right?
And it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to say, hey, I'm about to have a conversation with you that I don't have it all worked out. I don't know where we're going to go with this. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm like, I feel really like my skin is crawling right now. And, like you don't have to say
Yeah.
all those details, but just even voicing this is an uncomfortable conversation for me can say, oh, okay, so it's uncomfortable for me too. And all right, so we're both uncomfortable. We're not like this is good. We're on a little more of an even playing ground.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So, one of the things, as we said, like leading other people is similar to leading yourself, right? And to me, when I think about self-leadership, there's self-awareness, there's time management, there's kind of my decision-making process, some confidence, that kind of thing. And I think that when you're the boss, it can be more difficult, maybe, or challenging to hold yourself accountable to and sometimes to the same standards that you're holding other people, right? Um, have you ever seen that with the people that you've worked with?
I find actually that entrepreneurs especially are particularly hard on themselves. And that part of that's their own imposter syndrome, part of that's their desire their belief that they have to have it all figured out, before they
Mm,
do things. Um, there's certainly, I think that place where that vulnerability that you talked about, is that I might ask my assistant to do something, and there was a part of it that I was supposed to give to her so that she could do it, and I didn't do it. And so I might think, oh my, when is she going to get that done?
right.
And then I remember, oh right, I didn't give her the stuff that I needed to give her. So I have to start with, oh, I see that I didn't give you what you needed to do that job.
Right.
And that's vulnerable. But also then holding myself to account of like, okay, so when am I going to do that? If that's so important for me, and I might be wanting to take out my frustrations on somebody else, well, then what do I need to do over here in my chair that makes that more possible? So I do find that entrepreneurs are particularly hard on themselves, mostly because we see and hear about somebody else really winning. There's so much out there about how fabulous everybody's lives are, in all the social media.
Right.
And you read it and you think, my life doesn't look like that. I don't feel that way. That's not my experience. Every day I wake up and I wonder if I'm going to make it through the day. And
Hmm.
the, and so when we try to measure up to actually the fiction that's told on social media, then it has us feel like we're never quite measuring up. And then we're very hard on ourselves about not doing it the way that somebody else does it.
Right. Totally agree. Right. And I post a lot, on social media about my travel and stuff like that, like on my personal channels, right? And people will be like, "Oh, your life's so glamorous." I'm like, "Really? It's not." Right?
Yeah.
Like you're just seeing, a great picture that I took and,
Yeah.
some inspired words that came along. There's like, I don't know, 23 hours and 50 minutes that you didn't see.
Right. Right. I always say that when I go traveling, I have magical moments, and in between is complete chaos.
Right?
I'm lost most of the time. I'm frustrated. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. And then all of a sudden I go, oh, here's that moment that I was looking for. And the day
Right?
might have three of those, but it was 24 hours of chaos otherwise.
Right. And even, this is funny that because we were together at an event, right? It's quite a big event.
Yeah.
And always when I'm at events, I try to take, group shots, me with people and the fun people I met and all that stuff, right? And I have got some of me and you having dinner and all the things. And I had somebody uh, reach out to me on Instagram, and she said, I see so many pictures, you're at events and you're with all these people. And she's like, when I go to events, I feel kind of like intimidated and kind of shy. And like, you're out there with all these people. How'd you get to know all these people? I said, most of these people I don't know. Right.
Mm.
I do now, but I go to events on my own and I go and sit at the bar on my own and I just try to have a smile on my face and hopefully make eye contact with someone and begin a conversation, right? Sometimes I
Right.
know someone here and there, but it can be lonely, right? Especially as a solopreneur, right? You
Mm.
may probably
Hmm.
don't have, someone coming with you from your company to some event, right? And it can feel weird, right? It like brings back memories of like high school, like going to a new school and
Absolutely.
there's the
Yeah.
cool kids over there and
Yeah.
there's those
Yeah.
people over there and everybody looks like they're best friends. And then
Yeah.
you're sitting there going, what do I do? Right?
Yeah.
Has that ever kind of come into your awareness?
Yeah, well, part of that is personality type, where some people are really, they walk into an environment and they are like they want the breadth of the experience, and they engage in the breadth of it, and they know they're going to meet some individuals, but they're kind of engaged in the big event. And there's other people that really want depth in their engagement, and so they want to know people first of all, and they're more comfortable in the one-to-one or very small groups. And so part of that's that. And then there's also just, kind of where you're comfortable. So I do an incredible amount of networking, and I am extroverted, even though I spend quite a bit of my actual days, in my office by myself. I'm quite extroverted, and I'm very, very well known in my community. So when I show up to an event here, I look like a socialite. I've got conversations going all over the place, and I walk out with all kinds of appointments, and I forget what it's like when you're new.
Mhm.
And the very first time I went to the very first eWomen conference I went to, it was really pretty soon after COVID. And so it was the first was a first really big event I'd been to at all. And it was probably one of the larger conferences I'd been to in a long, long time. There were like 500 people in the room. I was completely overwhelmed.
Mm.
And I felt that tiny little self again, that part of you that thinks like, did I wear the right outfit today? And everybody's staring at me.
Right?
And so I think it's actually good for extroverts to be in environments where they feel uncomfortable because it reminds them of what it's like. But it's also I think that where I work with people around their comfort is start with where you're comfortable. So if you're comfortable in smaller groups, get to know people in your community in smaller groups so that when you go to the big groups, you know people. And the
Mhm.
big change for me is the next conference is where you and I met. Uh, I had done a lot of different, I had been involved with the Speaker Network and the Premier Success Coach Network, and I'd been involved with things that were smaller groups. So when I walked into that room, even though there were 500 people there again, I had a relationship with many of them, one to one or one to small groups.
Mm.
And that changed my experience immediately. I was able to move around really with quite a bit of comfort. And I met plenty of new people. I met a lot of new people while I was there. But I knew that I needed to have some connection to a few people so that I could walk up and say, "Hi, how are you? Good to see you again," rather than, "Hi, I'm Markey Read," and all that kind of awkward
Totally.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I love that. So I love that distinction that you mentioned, which it's caused me to kind of think about myself in like there's people who want the breadth of the experience, and then there's people who want to go deep, right?
Yeah.
And both are okay, both are great. Nothing's right or wrong, good or bad, right? Um, and yeah, I think for me, like I love deep one-on-one relationships, but when I'm at an event, I do like the breadth of the
Yeah.
experience, right?
Yeah.
So that is interesting to me. I
It's really
haven't
where you
thought about
start.
that.
Like, so
Yeah,
I enjoy the breadth, and then I want to go into depth with people.
yeah,
And like, I know plenty of entrepreneurs that I talk to about networking, and they're freaked out by it. It's because they want the depth first and then they can get to the breadth. And you can't walk into a big group and have depth.
you're right,
You
totally.
have to be able to and that's where those one-to-one kind of conversations are really important.
Yeah, I went to an event last year. Um, And I learned something from one of the ladies that I have now incorporated into my life for any event that I go to. Um, it was a 3-day event in Florida, and like the day before the event, she said, "Hey," like in the community, she said, "Hey, I'm going to be there the day before. Anybody who wants to meet for like early
Love
dinner,
that.
late
Yeah.
lunch, I got a table for 10."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, because when you get to an event hotel and you're there early and you're walking around, you're by yourself, you don't know, those people look like they're probably at the event. I'm not sure. I feel kind of shy to go, hey, are you going to this event? Right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
probably are, right?
Yeah.
But it feels weird, right? Um, and so I was like, I'll go for dinner, right? I'll be there, and so put my name down. And how amazing it was, right? It was 10, so it wasn't a huge group, 10 people, right? I actually sat across from an incredible woman. I ended up becoming a volunteer board member of her not-for-profit. Um, and I met people that are now friends of mine, like they're real
Right.
friends, right?
Right.
That I probably wouldn't have met at the big event. It had like 1,000 people at it, right?
Right.
So I really loved that approach. And I felt it was a great demonstration of leadership, like self-leadership. Like, hey, I'm there. I need to eat. Want to eat
I
with
bet you
me,
do too. Right. Yeah. I
right?
love that
Totally,
is such
right?
a great idea. And I think that, when I went to, are you in platinum, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I went to the first platinum event, I happened to have gone with, I arrived with Kate Payne, who is like the most social human on planet that I know of. And so she knew a lot of people. And I felt like I was like, we got a table and a bunch of people came, which really helped because then the next day when we actually started, I knew people again. It was that same kind of feeling like, oh, I had been introduced already. And so now when I see you in the bigger group, I can talk to you and feel like we can pick up on that conversation. And
Totally.
we so much assume that the people that seem like they're rock stars in a big group are having a good time with that. And they got their own stuff too. If you really ask them, they would tell you they're uncomfortable and self-conscious and, they got all their own stuff going on about it, but they've either practiced being more that sort of bubbly, or they have some level of comfort with a group that helps them be more naturally that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Like we think we look at people who look like they got it all together and they have, they got things
Yeah.
going on too. Right. So,
Every
um,
leader suffers from imposter syndrome. Every leader. And,
right.
it's like 70% of leaders experience imposter syndrome. And I think it's actually higher for women
Mhm.
because we not only are hard on ourselves, but we're hard on, we think that we have to show up as so perfect and flawless because some other external environment told us at one point we had to show up in that way. And, I came of age when, big shoulder pads were the thing and everybody
Me
walked around like they
too.
were football players, right? And so, it was very much about your physical size. And I happened to be quite tall, which helped me. But I sported some pretty big shoulder pads in those days and I liked it, I liked it. But now I have more comfort in myself that I don't feel like I need that extra bit of that padding to show up as strong, but it helped when I was younger.
For sure. For sure. For me, in my like corporate career, it was all in finance, right? And I didn't have a uniform supplied to me, but I had a uniform, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I had a pinstripe suit with a waistcoat and that was it. Like when I put that on, the game is on, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we're going to work today
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? It's so different now, right? Like, so many of us, like you and I, we work from our home office and, it's not exactly a corporate environment back there. And so, it's different, right? Often I'm, in my leggings and I've come from the gym or whatever. It's different, but I think it's also a comfort with yourself, right? Like I don't need to
Yeah.
prove, like I do not need to prove myself to anybody.
Right.
I believe, right? And
Right.
it doesn't mean I'm the right fit for everyone because I'm not. But that those days of wanting to prove my worth are gone.
Right. 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 And I think
Right.
that's when we're younger, we don't know ourselves well enough.
Yeah.
And this is the advantage of wisdom of age, right? We become wise from experience. And when we're very young, especially very young women professionals, there's so many mixed messages about what it means to be successful or even have a good job or all of those things that we try to morph ourselves into all these other standards that very few fit women in general, but very few fit any individual at any time.
Right. Right. So, this there's so many women. This is really awesome at this point in our development as a society. There's a lot of women starting their own businesses, right, which we can call
Hmm.
solopreneurs. um it there's years where you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things. I've done that, you've done that, many people have done it, right?
Yeah.
um I had to learn to become a CEO.
Yeah.
I didn't have any experience at that, right? Um, and I had to learn how to hire, right? Which I would
Hmm.
say I am not good at. And now I have somebody in my company who does that because I feel like I made the worst hiring decisions in existence, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I made several myself. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh my God. Like it's even recently, like I was just talking to my finance manager the other day and I'm like, if I ever try to hire a friend again, tell me no. Like
Right.
if I call you and say put this person on payroll, say absolutely not.
Right. Right.
Because I've lost friendships, right,
Yeah.
over it. And because Michelle, the business owner, is different than Michelle, the friend,
Right. As she should
right?
be.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
And that can be hard to navigate if you're hiring new
Yeah.
friends, right? I know many solopreneurs dream of hiring a team, right? They feel tired, they feel, stretched kind of thing. But they can struggle in letting go of control. I did. I had to learn how to do that. Do you see that?
Yeah. I think I see it with myself too, the first of all, the big barrier of, I don't know that I'm even paying myself enough and now I'm going to hire somebody else to do that. But
Right.
when you
Totally.
do that, you actually free yourself up to do the higher level things that are really meant for you to do. And so that's the first step, is just getting over that barrier. And then I was coaching a client recently who asked me, what she should look out for when hiring. And I said, first of all, just recognize that if this is the first person you've ever hired, like as any kind of help, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to hire the wrong person, and it's okay. Hire them on a probationary period. Be clear about the parameters of what they're, whether it's going to work out. Don't hire a friend, right? Um, and then just check in, because if it's not working for you, it's likely not working for them either. And so
Mm-hmm.
being willing to make the mistake, get some things going, because it'll force you to document and kind of learn how to train somebody, all of those things that you need to do anyway. If that person doesn't work out, then you say, thank you very much, goodbye. And the next person you hire is very likely what you really needed. The first time I hired an office manager, I hired somebody that was a lot like me. And that was not the right place. I needed to
Yeah.
delegate things to somebody who wasn't me. And so that person didn't last long because she wasn't happy. She actually was really unhappy. And then the next person I hired was just a perfect fit. She came right in and she knew exactly the kind of things I needed her to do, and she just took stuff and ran. I couldn't have been more happy.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have found her if I hadn't made that first mistake.
I totally agree. And what I found really useful was I'm not an expert in this, but having an understanding of the personality types,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I know that I'm a quick start. I lack follow through, right?
Mm-hmm.
If for an assistant or, somebody's going to be working with me, they can't be a quick start.
Mm.
They have to have that follow through, right? Like they have
Yeah.
to be able to take something over the goal line kind of thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
I can come up with all the ideas, I got all the things, and then I need to hand it off and they have to run with it and have that skill to see it through to the end. And
Right.
I was hiring people who were quick starts because I liked them,
They
right?
they seem like great people. Yeah.
Totally, right? They totally
Yeah.
jam with me. This person gets me, right?
Right. Right.
And nothing was getting to completion,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then it was like, well, this isn't working now. So for me, understanding a bit about, like we use Colby, we use a bunch of things, but understanding about myself and then seeing the gaps. Having a consultant in personality testing helped me understand the gaps for me, who can come in to support me to fill those gaps, and then what's the ideal kind of profile or whatever for these different roles.
Right. Right.
Right.
So I would caution people on trying to find out like the perfect personality type to be your assistant. Because it's particularly with personality type, the model that I use, it's not meant to be prescriptive.
Right.
However, there are really good clues that if you, for example, are somebody who needs to talk things through, you might want to hire somebody who's able to do that with you. talk things through with you because it's how you think. Like some people actually need to talk it out to really get their ideas
Totally.
fleshed out.
Yeah.
But the other piece is, if somebody is so different from you, like so detail oriented, where I'm highly organized and structured, but I'm not detail oriented, which people often confuse, that structure does not mean detail. And if somebody's too detail oriented, they can't take an idea I've got and run with it and play with it. And then I end up having to give them so much information that I may as well have done it myself.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, totally.
It's a
So,
tricky thing. I think so. I want to say that the thing about hiring people is you want people to who get you, kind of your philosophy, your point of view, things like that, who aren't a replica, but also who can challenge you, to push back a little and say, is that what you really meant? Or I thought we were talking about this. Where are we now? And they'll ask you those questions so that they work with you rather than just do what they're told.
right. Yeah. I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
And along with that, I think that we have to understand boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like boundaries with
Yeah.
clients, boundaries with team members. And, a leader, for me, a big part of leadership is understanding boundaries for myself, and supporting my team, because I do have a team, um, in implementing and holding boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Usually with clients or,
Yeah.
sometimes other team members, right? I think it's crucial in leadership, but it can be hard to enforce, right? I think especially, I have a service-based business as my core business. And I find that, there's this balance between, the good old profit margin and providing the service that we promise, right?
Right.
And clients will push the boundary, right? They'll push the scope, and we have to, always be holding this boundary. What are some practical ways that solopreneurs in particular can set and maintain boundaries with clients, and then as they grow a team with team members?
Oh, great question. So I think first of all, we make all of our, we create all of our firm boundaries and policies in response to something that happened that went too far.
Right.
Right. So part of that's learning from experience, right? So you hire
Yeah.
somebody that really didn't work out and you realize, okay, I need to revise that job description, or I need to be more clear about the upfront about what their agreement is. You create those in retrospect. So I think that's important to recognize that you're going to make mistakes. This is part of having the sense of humor about yourself. And then the other
Totally.
piece is, as you create those spaces, let people know in advance. And you can even say, I wish I could just talk to you all day, but I need to, I have until the top of the hour, I've got to be done. And you set up some of those expectations early in the conversation or early in the relationship. When we give too much early on, then people who push those boundaries just keep taking and taking. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're in a very difficult circumstance and you didn't put in some of those earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I work with people individually, I'll say, we can communicate in between meetings. Like it's not like we can only talk during our meetings. And if it's going to take me more than a few minutes to respond to your question, then we'll have an appointment. And I'm clear about that up front because I've had people who wanted to basically do all of the program through email questions. And I spent too much time answering their questions when I could have just talked to them for 10 minutes and made a
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Yeah.
So I've learned that. And the other piece that the analogy I use is when, if you hire a plumber to do work in your house, you tell them what you need to do and they'll give you a quote. And then you change something or something it's added. They call that a change order. And they will tell you that's going to cost you. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
cost you more. And that's where I believe that with solopreneurs, particularly service providers, is to say that, yes, I can do that. And that's outside of the program that we're in right now, or that's in addition, or that's a supplemental piece that I do. And it'll cost you. You don't have to say it'll cost you, but it's in there. It's embedded into the language that, yes, it's extra.
Yeah.
It's a bonus on top of, or it's an additional service.
Yeah, because what I have found is that when you do things for people, right? Like sometimes my team will do things that are out of scope, right? Because they want to make their client happy, right?
Right.
Maybe they made a little mistake or something and they feel like got to make it up or whatever. That's totally fine, right? Like what I tell them, that's okay. Once in a while, not a big deal, right? So, but you need to make sure the client knows it's out of scope,
Yes, yes, right. Because
right?
even if if you went way over, you let them know. And like I often
Yeah,
say to people on invoicing, if you are giving a discount, like in the negotiation on a big project, you gave a discount. Make sure in the invoice you reiterate that you gave a discount.
yeah,
Or again, you say, this isn't normally what I do, and I'll make an exception here. So you put in some of that language, let them know you're doing them a favor as opposed to they deserved it or they would have gotten it anyway.
yeah, for sure. Because if they don't know, they just think this is
Right. They think it's the
normal,
normal
right?
thing.
Like
Yeah.
this is it, right?
Yeah.
And I
And
think this,
I coach sometimes, people that I've known for years and years. I have a client right now. I've known her for 30 years. She's a client. And so we're really old friends. And she came to me for some coaching. And it's an interesting place to keep that boundary. So I make sure that when we're in our appointment time, that we're talking about her business
yeah,
and we're not trying to figure out when are we getting together again for lunch.
totally.
And I might do that after, the hour. I say, hey, by the way, I also wanted to ask you about, but I make sure I do that outside of that time that's hers.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's really important, right? Um,
Yeah.
and there's boundaries we have to hold with team members as well.
Yes. Yes. And that's where our own leadership comes in, is we have to be able to say, using all the I statements, right? It's like, well, I noticed that when this happens, I experience this, I feel this way. And I want to know more about it from your perspective. So you inquire what's going on for you, and maybe they tell you something. It happened just yesterday with my assistant. She designed something for me, and it was odd. And I said, "Can you just tell me more about that?"
Mm,
And she told me her thought process was, and I said, "Okay, that's good to know. And this is what I want to change it to." And it changed it from I can't say anything to her to I want to know more about where you were coming from, and now I have some ideas about where we can go with that. And it's an
yeah,
inclusive conversation rather than a penalizing or
yeah.
even
Like I
feeling
don't
like,
like
oh,
that.
I've just got to accept it because she designed it and I don't want to hurt her feelings.
Totally. I love that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Curiosity. I always encourage my management team approach things with curiosity, ask
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah.
right?
Because
Tell me more
people
about that.
have good reasons for why they did things. They have
Yeah,
really
there's
good
not
reasons for why they did things.
yeah, totally. It's not usually just random, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um this is such a great conversation. I know sometimes, um leadership can be demanding, right? And there can be a big growth curve there, a learning curve. And at the same time, women, business owners are trying to grow their business. They might be, maybe they're in a growth stage or a scale stage, or maybe even in an exit stage, right?
Mm.
Um, what advice do you have for business owners who want to grow their leadership skills while running their business without burning out?
Mm. Well, I think coaching, every business person, I think, needs a coach. Having a
Mhm.
coach that you can go to that's outside of your business, that you can run things by and talk things through. Um, that's one piece. And I think the other is mentorship. Finding
Mm-hmm.
people that you would really admire have the kind of business that you're interested in. Maybe it's not the same exact industry, right? But they have their business has a size and shape that you'd like to be there. So asking either them to be a coach or to have a mentoring relationship, those are really important as we grow, because we need people that are outside of our own head, outside of our own team, that we can talk to about, I'm really frustrated with this, or I'm confused, or I feel like I'm not up to this. How do I handle that? And when you have a safe person to speak to, it helps you sort out what's the solution for you rather than what somebody's video on YouTube told you, or on TikTok, or whatever else you're looking at that told you how to handle a difficult situation or grow. When you can um, explain what's going on, be able to sort it out, and then come to that place inside, like, okay, this is what's true for me. That's where you'll see the growth, because you're claiming more and more of your own power.
That's so good. Um, I completely agree, right? And I think sometimes people get confused between terminology, right? Mentors, coaches, peers, right? I think they're all super, like, role models. They're
Mm,
all really important, but they're all different, right? And I had to learn that myself, right? Like, I have a mentor and she's not in the same industry as me. Um,
hmm.
but she is great. She's a great sounding board, right?
Right,
I have a peer group. They're great to kind of problem solve, vent to. Like,
right.
when I'm frustrated, I go to them and they go, "We know you're not alone," right? And I have role models. Role models are often, for me, my role models are people I don't even know. I probably read their
Hmm.
book, or I love how they're living their life, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
inspired by them.
yeah.
And a coach is somebody I pay to support me in some kind of usually specific thing in my business or life, right?
Right, right.
And I find people get confused with all of those different terminology and those options, um, or they mix them up.
Yeah, or they seek advice from people who haven't been where they're going. So
Totally.
they seek business advice from their friends as opposed to a coach or a mentor. And
Yeah.
your friend might, unless your friend has the kind of business that you're trying to build or has been there where you want to be, they're going to give you a kind ear, maybe even let you rant and rave, but they're not necessarily the place to go for your actual business advising.
Yeah. And then you end up spinning your wheels, which can also contribute to overwhelm,
Yeah.
right?
I think so many times we get into communities, there might, whatever community you are a part of. And we go to meetings and events and we hear this and we hear that, and we hear this and we hear that. And we walk out with a list of the to dos that we're going to do to improve our business, as opposed to thinking, because it worked for Michelle, so it should work for me. But maybe I don't really know Michelle that well, or what her business really is, or what she's up to, or all of those things. And so, while Michelle thinks it's fantastic to do this, it's really not my jam. And so
Mm-hmm.
I could do it, but it's not. It's going to be a big lift for me to do. How can I take an idea that I heard and maybe transform it into something that I think would work for me, or as opposed to just duplicating, or all the free advice out there on the internet about how you can make $1 million and be a most amazing whatever successful person you think you should be. We don't know it. I don't know enough about those people that are making all those claims to know whether, first of all, did they do it? Did it work for you? Have
Mm-hmm.
you done it long enough to prove that? And has it worked for other people? Because I can regurgitate all kinds of great tidbits about how to run a business that I've never done myself.
Totally. That's so valid, right? And a friend of mine just sent me uh she was like, "Hey, I'm going to this event at the end of the year. I think it'd be awesome. Do you want to go?" And I was like, well, just send me over the details, I'll have a look. And I was like, who's this person? Right. And she's like, oh, I've been following her on Instagram. She's awesome. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know anything about her. Right. I'm happy
Right.
to check her
Right.
out and stuff. I haven't heard of her. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but, like there's so many people, I think, in the past, I don't know, 5 to 10 years who've just kind of gone out there and said, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do this thing, whether or not they've done that thing. Right.
Right.
So we do have to do our research. And when you're spinning your wheels, that can contribute to that overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I found myself when I was really making a big shift in my business, when I would talk to coaches or peer groups or others. And I just felt like every time somebody gave me feedback, whether it was a friend or a mentor or a coach, I just walked away with a list of to-dos as opposed to list of I want I want to do. I walked away with a list of shoulds, I guess, instead of what I really want, and then chased after those. I think in some ways they were good exercises to learn again, like learn how to do stuff, and then decide that's not for me. But too many of us just say, well, it worked for me, it should work for you.
Totally.
And that's not good coaching to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Just because it's worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you, or that it's in alignment with how you want to run your business or do business or show up in the world or, whatever. Right. So that circles all the way back to self-leadership. Right. Being able to be discerning as to what's for you and what's not for you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I believe firmly that what's meant for me will not pass me by because it will keep coming up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also gotten caught up in lots of things that weren't for me because I got caught up in the hype of it or, whatever. Right. Or I want what that person has. Right. And, not necessarily the way to move forward, but, it is what it is. You learn and you move on. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Such a great conversation today, Markey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was awesome. I just adore you and all that you do. And I just am so grateful that you were able to spend the time with us today.
Yeah, it was really lovely to have this conversation. I think that when we talk as peers to other entrepreneurs who've been at it for a while, you start to appreciate each other, but also you appreciate your own path more. And I think this is the value of listening to people who've, on podcasts and things, the people who've been doing this for a while. You realize that, you know stuff, right? You know stuff.
Yeah, I know.
That's
stuff.
my phrase for the year.
We need a T-shirt
I know stuff
that says "I know stuff."
Yeah,
I know stuff. Oh my God,
yeah,
that's a thing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So we're going to put all of your contact details in the show notes. If people want to follow you on social media, where do you hang out most?
I am on LinkedIn the most under Markey Read. As far as I know, I'm the only Markey Read out there. It's MarkeyRead.
Awesome.
So I'm easy to find. And I also, if people want to know more about their leadership style in terms of how it fits into personality type, I actually have a tool on my website that'll help them, and I'll make sure you have that link to put into the resource notes so people can discover that for themselves.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you guys later. Phew, wasn't that fire, hey? Thanks to Markey Read. Huge thanks to Markey Read for dropping truth bombs and empowering strategies that every solopreneur and small business owner needs to hear. Remember, leadership isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. with intention, boundaries, and your authentic style. Whether you're a team of one or growing fast, the secret to sustainable success starts with leading yourself first. If this episode gave you some aha moments, I know it did for me, share it with some of your fellow solopreneurs or even leave a review. It helps more incredible listeners like you find the Rich Life Revolution. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Michelle B. Cooper for more behind the scenes insights and real talk leadership advice. Until next time, keep leading, keep growing, and keep building that rich life on your terms. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.